fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe, American hero. G.I. Joe is there.
Video has emerged of yet another train derailment in Ohio, this time in a small town called Springfield. This sure is to get the attention of our intrepid Secretary of Transportation, who loves nothing more than long walks on the beach and getting plowed by heavy equipment. We could finally get the answer, is little Petey riding top or bottom? In a train bunk, of course. Meanwhile, President Trump showed up with McDonald's and cases of Trump water to a throng of admirers, giving us perhaps the single greatest contrast of jocks versus nerds. While Trump was in Ohio, President Joe Biden visited his most important constituents in Ukraine. The visit was a surprise and featured President Biden and Zelensky walking side by side to express their undying commitment to each other. Let's have a look. Rest assured, the siren noises is Zelensky breaking into the US Treasury. On his trip, Biden promised to gift additional billions of taxpayer dollars to the Zelenskys and their totally non-corrupt generals. First Lady Jill Biden is obviously very, very jealous. These days, she's got a better chance with Kamala's husband. It got so embarrassing that Grandpa Joe was literally tripping over himself after meeting the former celebrity. We always knew that Joe had a thing for Black people, but Zelensky is a special type of welfare queen. He's light-skinned, a cross-dresser, and a Jewish entertainer. The trifecta for diversity and inclusion. In a completely unrelated story, US intelligence has concluded that the Nord Stream pipelines were blown up by a pro-Ukrainian group. As a reminder, the two pipelines carry Russian natural gas to Germany. They not only provide much-needed energy to the EU, but also a major cash cow to the Russians. As for the pro-Ukrainian group responsible for the sabotage, I know at least one guy who really loves Ukraine and has a history of blowing up chemicals at a large scale. In addition, the pipeline sabotage would really ruffle Putin's bare-chested feathers. For all the talk about global warming and methane emissions, that sure is a lot of cow farts. A Biden administration nuclear official is facing new allegations after an African fashion designer accused the official of stealing her luggage from the airport. Sam Brinton, the norm-shattering transgender nuclear waste expert, likes to wear women's clothing and allegedly stole custom Tanzanian clothing. Brinton, who goes by they-them pronouns, will have to consult his other personality before admitting to anything. Message to crossdressers: if you're gonna steal women's clothes, make sure they're from maybe Macy's and not from a specialty African designer. If I was a Nigerian prince, I'd sure like to make him my princess on the side. Both are so good at stealing from unsuspecting Americans. For its part, the administration has fired the confused confiscator, for he has committed the ultimate sin of appropriating Black culture. The pervy perp faces up to 5 years in prison, where he's sure to learn more about that culture. The world celebrated International Women's Day, highlighting the accomplishments of many women without which the modern society would be unrecognizable. But it wasn't all celebration and plaudits. The United Nations issued an urgent appeal to the Taliban to lift restrictions on the women of Afghanistan. In order to get the libs off their back, Representative Abdul just asked a simple question, and because of our deep jihadi connections, we have exclusive footage of that interview.
So what is a woman?
Why do you ask that question?
I just really like to know.
What do you think the answer to that question is?
Well, I'm asking. That's why I came to a college professor who's this is what you do.
What other kinds of answers have you gotten?
A lot of like this, where you're not answering, and I've gotten a lot of that. So
20 minutes later.
you just really don't want to answer the questions, do you?
I came today very willing and enthusiastic about answering questions about women's and gender sexuality studies, which is
So
the
you
work that I
wanted
do.
you wanted to answer questions about women's studies, and so shouldn't the first answer you should be able to provide is what exactly is a woman?
Well, for me, it's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
But what are they identifying as?
As a woman.
But what is that?
As a woman.
Do you know what a circular definition is?
I do.
It's sort of like what you're doing right now, where a woman is a woman.
Mm-hmm.
After being flustered for about 30 minutes, the libs realize that it's impossible to oppress something that you cannot even define. 2 years after the January 6th riot on U.S. Capitol, additional footage was released by the Congress to right-wing pundit Tucker Carlson. The new videos reveal that while the event was chaotic, it was hardly an insurrection. Perhaps the most prominent figure from that day was Jacob Chansley, aka the QAnon shaman. Chansley is seen calmly strolling through hallways, often accompanied by multiple police officers. And in some cases, they're even guiding him around the building. In spite of his tourist-like behavior, Chansley was sentenced to 4 years in prison. It seems that he embodies everything that the left despises. Fur helmets instead of purple wigs. Stacked pecs versus sloppy vaginas. The red, white, and blue versus the colors of the rainbow with a cow dung streak. Now, if you're starting to think that conservatives and liberals don't have a lot in common, you may be onto something.